Readers Entertainment Radio presents Book Lights with your host, author Lisa Kessler. Book Lights, where we're shining a light on good books.
Hello, everyone. It's another Monday in October, and you heard our special October theme music, so you know that it's all horror all the time this month. So I've been having a great time chatting with all of the new scary, spooky books coming out and all of the great authors. And today you are going to get to meet author Philip Fracassi, and I totally forgot to ask him how to pronounce his last name, so hopefully I didn't just butcher it. But he has a new book that comes out tomorrow, and you guys have to go grab a copy. So if you haven't read him before, he's had quite a few short story collections out. But if you haven't read him before, this is his first full novel, and definitely go grab a copy. I'm going to read his bio here just so you can get to know him, and then we will get to talk with Philip. So he is an award-winning author and screenwriter, and his debut collection of stories, Behold the Void, was named Story Collection of the Year by both This Is Horror and Strange Aeons magazine. Locust magazine said it recalls the works of writers such as McCammon, King, and Bradbury, my Bradbury. His special collection, Beneath a Pale Sky, received a starred review from Library Journal and Booklist and called it a must-read collection. His debut novel, Boys in the Valley, premiered on Halloween 2021 from Earthling Publications, and his upcoming novels include A Child Alone with Strangers that comes out tomorrow, and Gothic from Cemetery Dance will be out in February. We'll ask him a little about that, too. His stories have appeared in multiple magazines and anthologies, including the Best Horror of the Year, and his work has been favorably reviewed by the New York Times, Rogue Morgue magazine, and Locust magazine, and many others. He has also produced screenplays that have been distributed by Lifetime Television and Disney Entertainment. Philip lives with his family in Los Angeles, California, and I did include right there on the Blog Talk site a link to his website so you can go sign up for his newsletter. He's also on Instagram and Facebook. So definitely, if you're listening live or if you're listening later, click that link so that you can get hooked up so you don't miss those upcoming books. Whew. With that out of the way, are you there, Philip?
I am. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for being here today, and I'm really excited about your new book. It's called A Child Alone with Strangers. Do you want to tell everybody about it?
Yeah, so A Child Alone with Strangers, it's my kind of debut trade novel. My first novel came out in a very limited edition of 500 copies, so this is my first wide release, as it were. And it's kind of I'm excited about getting it out there. I've done a couple short story collections, but never a novel. So I'm excited to get a novel out into the world. And it's Child Alone with Strangers. It's kind of an old school throwback novel. It's a 600-page story about a boy named Henry who goes through a series of tragic events, and it's kind of a crime horror hybrid in a way. It's kind of the first half of the novel has a lot of sort of police procedural kind of stuff because Henry is kidnapped and he's taken to a remote farmhouse in the middle of a giant forest where he's held prisoner while the kidnappers wait for their ransom to be worked out. And most of the story takes place while Henry is kept prisoner in that farmhouse. And without giving any spoilers away, while Henry is being held in this remote location, he kind of communes with a supernatural being that lives in the surrounding forest, kind of a creature. And the creature and Henry both kind of have the same end game, which is to get the kidnappers out of that house for different reasons. And so that's kind of what a lot of the book is about. So it's kind of a horror crime, creature feature, a supernatural throwback horror novel. And I think it's a lot of fun. So far, the reviews have been really strong. So I'm excited for readers to get their hands on it.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. And I was going to ask you what inspired this. Did you see a news story about a kidnapping in a cabin in the woods, or was it a movie, or you read something somewhere and went, hey, how did it come to you?
Well, this is my first genre novel. So I've been writing my whole life, but I only started writing genre fiction about 5-6 years ago. And so I've written 3 novels, but they never sold. And so but when I started writing genre fiction, and I started selling a lot of short stories, horror short stories, and supernatural thrillers, and I started become kind of building a career out of it. So when I knew I was going to take my first stab at a novel, I really wanted it to be an homage, if you will, to all the great horror novels I'd grown up reading, all the Stephen King and Dean Koontz and Clive Barker novels, Peter Straub, and so I really wanted to kind of, give tribute to those guys. And the best way I could think about doing that was I kind of said to myself, I'm just going to make this a kitchen sink novel. I'm going to throw in all the good stuff and just kind of give it an original spin. And so I had the telepathic kids. I have the creature in the woods. I have the FBI agent dealing with the crisis. And I have, so I kind of wanted to make it like an all-in, pedal to the metal, horror story that was just like a fun adventure and a crazy, wild time for readers. And I just wanted to, and I knew I wanted to be big, and I wanted the world to be big, and I wanted this to just have all these fun elements. And so that was where I started. And then I just started piecing it together. Once I had Henry, who's this 9-year-old boy, once I had him locked in, the story came really quickly, because he's really the star of the show. And once I get my hooks into a character and how they think and how they feel and how they interact, that really is what I build the story around. So that's, that was kind of how the impetus of the book came about.
I love that. And what was it that drew you to writing horror? Have all your stories always been scary? What is it about horror that keeps calling you back?
Yeah, I think, well, even when I wasn't writing genre fiction or horror, I was writing dark literary fiction. By literary, I mean non-genre. So, all my characters were pretty dark, like there was, but it wasn't anything supernatural about it. So like my novels are kind of more like, my early novels are more, they're very character-driven stories about very real people. Whereas once I decided to kind of flip that switch, and to answer your question, what was happening at the time in my life was I was writing a lot of screenplays, and I'd had some success. I wrote like 7 screenplays for Disney. I wrote a Lifetime movie that came out that was kind of like a ghost story. I wrote like 3 or 4 horror screenplays, and I was like pitching them to everyone from Blumhouse to CBS, and I wasn't selling anything. And so I kind of made the connection late in life, kind of having written a lot of these horror screenplays, and I was reading a lot of horror. And I said, I should just try and combine these two things, my fiction world and my screenplay world. Yeah. And which is where my passion is horror. That's where I grew up reading, and take a shot at writing a horror story. So I wrote a story called Mother. That was a 10,000 word story. And I sent it to a guy I'd been interacting with, Laird Barron, who's a wonderful horror writer. And he gave me a bunch of great feedback and kind of inspired me to keep going. And I sold that story. And then I wrote another story, and I sold that, and I wrote another story, and I sold that. And so it just kind of seemed like I had found my niche. And I think what was interesting was I was able to take all the experiences from my life and all the skills I had developed writing, kind of straight, fiction, non-genre fiction, and then kind of combining it with all this horror stuff. So I think it enabled me to kind of write the kind of horror books that I would have always wanted to write, which was, they're very character driven. They're very literary. I think they pay very close attention to the prose that I use. I try and make my, the books read. I'm always shooting for beautiful, and I'm always shooting for emotional. So on top of that, I do a lot of supernatural fun stuff. So I think the combination of all that is what's given me kind of my my success.
Oh, I love that. And I know that when I started writing horror, and then paranormal romance started coming up, and I was like, okay, well, the good guys always win. That's good. So I kind of went in that direction. But for me, it's the supernatural part that always keeps me coming back to the keyboard, because I love imagining that the world might be bigger than what we see. And when you write, do you feel that too, that you can push the boundaries and, maybe put something in that maybe could be real, but, do you delve in that kind of direction?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things, I've actually written about this, and I wrote an essay about this, which is that one of the things that really attracts me to horror is that you can tell a story and literally anything can happen in that story. There are no rules. There are no boundaries.
Yes.
The story can go anywhere. And that's what's really, as a writer, that's exciting. To your point exactly. That's what makes it really exciting for me as a writer, because you're not really dealing with the restrictions of reality. And even with other genres, like I've written a sci-fi novel that's currently being shopped by my agent, and I've written a thriller, and I enjoy writing that stuff. But even like fantasy and sci-fi, they kind of have their rules. Quote, I'm doing air quotes.
They do have rules.
Can't
yeah.
see me, but right, where it's like, okay, well, there's sort of like, this is a fantasy novel because of A, B, and C, and this is a sci-fi novel because of A, B, and C. But with horror, it's like, yeah, it's got to be scary, and that's kind of the one rule. But really, besides that, it's kind of supernatural, allows you to just kind of do whatever you want. And I kind of think of my books in a way, not necessarily to categorize them, but just more to give maybe readers an idea of what kind of horror I write, because there's such a wide breadth of horror, categories. But I really think of myself, my books as being supernatural thrillers. They are scary,
right?
But they're also adventures, and they tend to be, kind of more in that, a little bit more in that thriller vein, where you're kind of waiting to see what happens. But they all have supernatural elements, and that's something that I really, really love. And it's funny because my first agent, this is a few years back now, when I was first writing A Child Born with Strangers, he was like reading my manuscript as I was writing it, and he was like, whoa, dude, like, why don't you just focus, you should just make this a crime novel. Like, all this crime stuff, all the, procedural stuff is really interesting and exciting. And then you throw in like this crazy horror stuff, and I just kind of feel like, maybe we should just make it a crime novel. And I said, no, that's not what I want to do. I want it to be,
right.
I want to go places where a crime novel can't go. And I think ultimately, now that it's all finished, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think, like I said, I think early readers have been really excited about it. So hopefully people will have fun reading, and also hopefully it will defy expectations, I think, of maybe what people think is going to happen. I try very hard as a writer to counteract those feelings. Like, I'm hoping that you're always kind of surprised at what happens next in one of my stories.
Now, were you surprised at where your story went, or are you a big-time plotter and you knew what was happening? Did your book throw twists at you that you were like, wait, what? What just happened? I'm a big outliner, and I think that stems from my screenplay experience, which is, you can't really fly by the seat of your pants when you're writing a screenplay. Screenplays are so structured, and they have to kind of stick to certain, regimen. And, but I learned a lot about story structure and about narrative and about pinches and about beats and about act one, and what to bring to each act and what to bring to certain characters to make the conflict interesting and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's really helped me writing my novels. With Child Born with Strangers, I pretty much stuck to the script. I knew exactly what I had it outlined very extensively. I had revised that outline multiple times. And actually, there was one point where I was kind of coerced into writing one kind of a book, and it was literally like something being torn off my body slowly, because my
my agent at the time was trying to get me to write a certain kind of book, and I was like, man, that's not what I want to write. And I know I can.
Right.
I know it's so clear in my head. If you just let me write what I want to write, it's going to be. And he was like, it's too long, it's too crazy, it's all this stuff. And I'm like, no, it's going to work. And so I kind of had to, like, at one point I had to sort of like go back and rewrite. Like, I think I had at the time like almost over 50,000 words written. I had to go back and kind of rewrite the whole thing from scratch because I really knew what my vision was. I mean, my vision was so clear with this book. So once I had the freedom, when I was no longer with that agent, to just write exactly what I wanted to write, it really happened really fast. But to answer your question, I wrote another book, thriller, called Blue Butterfly. And the thing about mystery, it's a mystery thriller. And the thing about, and it's a time travel kind of in a way too. So the thing about mystery thrillers is that as you know, you have to really plot it out because you have to have the the red herrings, and you have to have the misdirections, and you have to have you have to drop hints as to what's happening. So there's a lot that goes into structuring a mystery thriller, and so it's kind of a balancing act in a way because you want all these elements to play correctly. So when the end comes, the reader's surprised and excited, and hope So, but it was funny because I would say a little more than halfway through writing that book, and one of the characters, my main character, as I was writing, did something that was not part of the script.
Was not on the script.
It was not part of the script, right? And she went a completely different direction. And as I was writing it, I swear to God, this is true. As I was writing it, I was like, "What are you doing?" And I was so annoyed.
Yes.
And I wrote the chapter. I'm not kidding. I was so angry. I was so frustrated and angry that I got up. I went downstairs. My wife was downstairs, I think, making dinner. And I was like, believe what just happened. I'm like, I had to completely, she changed the whole book. And I was angry. And I was like as if I was like dealing with like somebody who had, and that's how invested I get in my characters. And I ended up I had to go back and redo huge chunks of the outline for the remainder of the book to make it work, because it significantly changed the dynamic between her and another character. So I had to kind of rewrite in a way in my head the last third of the book, call it. And then I had to actually, and then once I did it, I was fine. So I was like, okay, it works. And so I wrote it. But yeah, so sometimes you do get the characters take over a little bit. And that was an instance where that happened. But for the most part, I'm in charge.
And do you feel like the book turned out better than what you had planned?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you take a step back and you're like going and rethinking about it, and you're like, and in a way it kind of, those kind of things are blessings because it also subverts what you think is going to happen. And so I think it's even more exciting because you're like, I see kind of now a whole different angle to this character that I wasn't really thinking about because I had my, everything so outlined and structured. So it was exciting, and ultimately, it definitely made the book better. It also it allowed me to see additional books for the story that I hadn't seen before. So I now saw it as a trilogy because of what happened with this character. I was like, wow. I could actually see this and this happening. So when I sent it to my agent, I actually sent her a totally new agent, by the way, not the agent I was referring to earlier. I had three. Where I sent her, and then I also sent her summaries for book 2 and book 3. So that was all, and that all stemmed directly from that incident. So I was very happy with the way it turned out. Hopefully we can sell it. It's currently being shopped around, so we'll see.
Oh, I'm sending good vibes. It sounds fantastic. I'm more of a pantser usually, but I usually know the ending, and I've had a few books where a character just takes a complete U-turn, and I'm going, what just happened? Now what? Now nothing's going to happen the way I thought it did, and 100% of the time it's always right. So I always feel like if you trust the book and you trust your characters, you're going to figure out, what it was supposed to be, which is really like my favorite part of writing. It almost feels like there's a super conscious, and we're along for the ride. And for me, that's always exciting at the keyboard when I'm like, wait a second. And then I realize, it's so much bigger than what I had planned,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the way I write when I'm writing a short story or even a novella. I always know the ending.
Right.
And then I kind of have a feel, and I have like the main idea. And that's kind of where I start. And then I kind of start getting the characters in my head. And then once I have the characters and I have the ending and the kind of the root idea, I just kind of, I don't, that's pretty much it. And then I just write. So writing short fiction for me is a lot of fun because it's exactly to your point. I never really know what's going to happen page to page, exactly how they're going to get to the end goal. So it's kind of fun to see that happening live. But I think if I were to try to do that with a novel, I would just end up frustrating myself and rewriting it too many times. So I try and really make that. Yeah. I try and really do all the heavy lifting, outlining side, because I outline. It's not just like I'm not sitting down for a day and like knocking out it's like 3 or 4 weeks of intense like thinking and playing with the ideas and letting them roll around in my head a little bit and kind of getting the characters fleshed out and sort of seeing how they're going to respond to different things. So that outline process takes a while, and then usually the writing is actually the easy part in a lot of ways, because once I'm writing the book, I'm not.
You've already worked it out.
What's going to happen next, or where am I going to go with this? I'm just like writing, and I'm focusing on the prose, the dialogue, and all that stuff. So, so that's the way. I think I would be a mess if I tried to pants a novel, but I do enjoy that process when writing shorter fiction. It's a lot of fun.
Right. Yeah. It almost feels magical. It's pretty cool. But I was going to ask you, since you were writing screenplays, so you were really, worrying about dialogue and all that kind of thing, when you had to put on a novelist cap, was it difficult for you, or did you love the control, that you get to write down everything that the character thinks and all that kind of thing? How different is it going from screenwriting to novel writing?
Oh, it's night and day. And I still write screenplays. I'm writing a screenplay right now that's for a feature that's based on one of my short stories that's been sole optioned, and the producer hired me to write the screenplay. So I'm working on that. It's called Death My Old Friend, and it's been announced like on Deadline and stuff, so I can say it. But it's so I am writing the screenplay. It's such a different experience. Screenwriting. You are, I always talk about it as you are building a platform for which others to build a story upon. And it's not your story. The reality is it's not your story. That's the hard reality. You're creating a structure for the director and the actors and the production designer and all those, and the costumer and all these people to build their world and their story. And the writer is really just creating the framework. And so it's not really that much fun. It's more of a job. It's more work, just like, in quotes, whereas writing fiction is a joy, is a passion, is fulfilling. It's what I want to do. I sleep well at night. I wake up in the morning excited to start working again. So that's really where my passion is creating fiction, because to your point, it's all mine. It's all me. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't have to answer to anybody. Yeah. No one's going to change my stuff. No one's going to screw with my story. Mm-hmm. No one's going to tell me we can't afford a car crash. I can do anything I want.
Right.
And yeah. Right. And we have too many locations or whatever it is. But there's something fulfilling about writing a screenplay as well. I wrote a movie called Girl Missing for Lifetime, and I got this. I was on set the entire filming process. I got to direct a B unit for a day and direct. So that was very fulfilling and very fun. But I went through like 26 drafts of that screenplay, and every day I'd be writing changes. Like literally, we'd go on a location scout, and the director, who, God bless him, is a friend of mine and a wonderful guy, but he was like, "Ooh, look at the way these doors open. We could do something with this." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And so, but then he's like, let's write something in where like
write a scene.
This and this. Right. So now we're writing into the door. Now we're writing in the doors. Or the actress pulls me aside and says, I know I want to talk about this dialogue in the scene. So, which is all fine. That's the job. That's what screenwriting is. But,
right.
But I much prefer to be. I like to be the boss. I like to be the producer and the actors and and the director
right.
and the writer all in one package and just kind of do it all myself. But so it's two different, and it's two completely, in my mind, they're not even related. They're two completely different things. But and then the last thing is about screenwriting is it's such a long process. People think writing a novel is a long process, and it certainly can be.
Right.
But writing a screenplay, you're beholden on all these other people to give you their input. So you're reacting more to other people's ideas than you are your own ideas. And so
your original vision, right?
Yeah, I'm not just producing something that I think is cool. I'm creating something that 3 or 4 or 5 other people think is cool. So it's just a very different mindset. And if I wasn't being paid to write screenplays, I wouldn't be writing screenplays. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Do you find that when you go back and forth between writing a screenplay and writing a novel that you have to remind yourself, don't rush, or, that it can't all be dialogue? Do you find it hard to shift back and forth?
No. I think it's harder the opposite. It's when you're writing a screenplay, it's hard not to write prose. It's hard not to, because you're mad. That's the whole thing with writing a novel, right? It's like once your imagination kicks in and you're visualizing the scene, you're looking around with
right.
your character's eyes, and you're seeing things and smelling things and tasting things and touching things, and you're writing all that description so that the reader feels like immersed in that world. With screenwriting, you can't do any of that, right? Like it's just like dialogue,
right.
action, dialogue, action. So you have to. Sometimes I have to pull back from writing. Ooh, that's a cool way to say that. You know what I mean? Like nobody cares.
Right, right.
Right. There's like, he walks through the door. I don't care if the door is brown. Let's move on. You know what I mean? Or the door, if the hinges creak. Or
right.
if they're, whatever. Let's keep it going.
No, he's ambling.
Yeah, right. He's not walking. He's ambling. Damn you. So.
Yes.
It is hard when you to keep it stripped down. To when you're writing a screenplay, because I am used to writing prose, so that's the only part that's difficult. Other than that, it's kind of the same thing. I'm visualizing and writing what I'm visualizing, but and with novels, it's more like a release. It's like, okay, I can actually write now. I don't have to just keep it to 8-word sentences and then dialogue and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's interesting to go back and forth. I'm very eager to finish this screenplay and start working on the next novel. It's coming out in 2024. So hopefully that'll happen sooner than later.
And speaking of next, what is the next book that's coming out for you? You have another one. Isn't it up for pre-order now?
Yeah, I have a bit of a log jam right now because basically all the building I've been doing for the last 5 to 7 years is all kind of coming to fruition at the same time. So it's great, it's fun, but it's also like it's a lot of things going on at once. So yeah, so I have Child Only Strangers coming out tomorrow, and that you can order from anywhere in the world. And then in February of 2023, I have a horror novel coming out called Gothic from Cemetery Dance, which is up for pre-order through the Cemetery Dance website. And then in July of 2023, I have a book coming out called Boys in the Valley. That's coming out from Tor Nightfire here in the United States, and it's coming out from Orbit UK in the UK Commonwealth countries. And that is up for pre-order worldwide through Waterstones or Amazon UK or Amazon US or anywhere you buy your book. So there's no cover for that one yet, but the cover should be coming in the next couple of weeks, so I'm told. And that one I'm excited about. Boys in the Valley, because while these Gothic and Child Only Strangers are wide releases, that'll be the first book where I have kind of a worldwide marketing campaign behind my book. So I'm excited to see how that does. And Stephen King tweeted about Boys in the Valley back in February because there was an early edition out that he heard about. So yeah, so that got me a lot of traction. So So I'm really excited about that book, for that book to come out. And then I have another, and then that same deal that I did with Nightfire and Orbit, there's a second book that's already sold that's coming out in 2024. So I have my work. That one I still have to write. Yeah, and then I have a third story collection coming out. Yeah, I have a third story collection coming out called No One Is Safe, which is coming out next October. And then I have a children's book that's coming out next month called Boy Like the Blue Rose Heart. So a lot, and then I have another book called Don't Let Them Get You Down. That's actually not genre. That's coming out from a small press called Zagava. That's supposed to come out hopefully before the end of the year. So I have a lot kind of going on right now.
Wow.
But the novels, the novels are exciting. You know, the big ones I'm promoting right now are Child Illustrators, obviously, and Gothic, and then Boys in the Valley in the summer. So all those are up for pre-order right now.
Oh, that's great. Well, everyone be sure that you go check the website. It's right there on the Blog Talk site. Click that and sign up for Philip's newsletter so you don't miss a thing. And I had such a great time chatting with you. Thanks so much for being here, Philip.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks for joining us on Booklights. Be sure to connect with us at www.readersentertainment.com for articles, blogs, videos, and podcasts that matter to readers.